Hello, this is Organization with Olu, and today I'm going to show you how you can score maximum marks in an SRAS question. Stick around, you might like what I've got for you. So what I'm going to do right now is share my screen. What we're going to do is an SRAS question, okay? Let's go straight into it. In order to get maximum marks, remember SRAS has to do with classical economics, has to do with the classical theory, which says that there's an SRAS, there's a SRS as well as the LRAS. Remember, don't get confused with the Keynesian. So you're going down the classical route. And SRA and cost of production is what shifts SRAS. Okay, that's something you should know. Okay, so this is an example of a question. Let's just make this a little bit larger. It says a barrel of oil has increased from $69 to $84. Analyze one macroeconomic impact or one macro impact of this to the UK economy. Okay. Include an appropriate diagram. Okay. So it's giving you the clue there, including an appropriate diagram. Sometimes they will not ask you to include an appropriate diagram, but straight away, as soon as you see it's anything to do with oil, you should be thinking cost of production, cost of production. Okay. Now, what you need to do if you want to excel and show yourself as a top student, you really, when you see numbers, that's an opportunity for you to do a bit of a calculation. So really what you really want to find out is the percentage change. It's obviously increased by what percent. Now, I'm not going to teach you maths because you really should be knowing this. I mean, some of my year sevens in school do percentage changes, so you must know this. But it's simply C represents relative change. In order to calculate the relative change, it would be x2, which would be the final value, which would be 84, minus the initial value, 69, divided by x1, which is initial value. Okay, so whichever formula, just make sure you use the correct formula. Times 100, and not to waste any time, you're going to get 21.7%. So that's quite significant. Now, you should do that because that will add value to your answer. So it's gone up by 21%. Okay. The barrel of oil has gone up by 21%. So what is the macro impact of that? Okay. First of all, you need to draw a diagram. So let's think about classical. How would the classical theory present this situation? Okay, so let's go down here. Let's see what I've done here. Question on SRS. Here we go. Diagram SRS. Okay, so I've just done the beginning of the diagram. So let's try and think of what can we do. Obviously, the price of oil, the barrel of oil has gone up significantly by 21%. Therefore, hopefully, you know that SRS is going to shift to the left. Okay, if you're not sure of that, you need to go back to look at the basics. SRS will shift to the left. So let's do that. Let's quickly do that. Okay, I'll just quickly draw SRS shifting to the left. Okay, and let's call it SRAS1. Okay, now you need to, let's label the diagram, which is very, very important. Let's do the labeling of the diagram. Remember, SRS is shifted to the left. Let's do the initial price level. So let's remember real GDP. Okay, let's call this Y and AD. So we're talking about the new output level. There's now Y1. Okay, remember this is real GDP. Okay, so label that real GDP, and let's do the appropriate price level. So the initial price level was at P, and now it's gone up to P1. If you want to, you could put in numbers if you wanted to. You could put in numbers showing that there's inflation, there's cost push inflation, which has pushed up the price. You could put numbers there. You could put 2, and then you could put 4%. You could put whatever. You could put numbers there, or just leave it as P and P1, showing that it has shifted to SRAS1. Okay, so therefore the cost of oil is now much more expensive. What you need to be thinking about is what can one macroeconomic impact be with price of oil going up. Remember, you use oil for a lot of things. A lot of things you use oil. In your answer, there's a couple of things you need in your answer. Think about using keywords such as cost push inflation. And what is cost push inflation? Is the type of inflation that's caused by a substantial increase in the cost of imported goods. Remember, the UK is an importer of oil. UK is a net importer of oil. In other words, we import a lot more oil than we export. We export, I mean, some Scotland produces oil and we do a little bit of that, but we import a lot more oil. So if the oil price goes up, that's gonna that's gonna make the cost of production very significant. And remember, we use oil for so many things. Think about transportation. Think about infrastructure. Think about making things. And again, do not forget we need oil in terms of petrol. That's a major household cost. In case you haven't done CPI, we look at household expenditure, and you find that people who have cars have a very large expenditure. A large proportion of it will go towards petrol. So if oil has gone up, it's going to have a significant impact in the economy. So in order to think about going back to the question, okay, so we've got this one now. Going back to the question, you want to be thinking about what macro impact we can have. Now, if you want to know where YFE is, let's draw a YFE. Let's draw a full employment here. Okay, so that is our LRAS, we'll label it up there, and YFE. So that will give you a better perspective of how far we are from the economy. Now we're now at Y1. So you can obviously see the negative output gap has increased. Remember, the original negative output gap was the distance between potential, which is YFE, and the actual, which initially was Y, and now it's actually increased to Y1. So the negative output gap is quite a lot. So if you're going to think about a macroeconomic objective, there's so many you can think about, but think about things like economic growth. Remember, we talk about it says one macroeconomic objective, okay? Let's go back to the question. Question on SRS, let's see, barrel, of oil. One macro impact to the UK economy. So think of one macro impact. Okay, think of maybe economic growth. Output has now reduced from Y to Y1, increasing the gap, the negative output gap. You can talk about that, or you possibly can look at employment. There's lots of things you can talk about. Remember, we have cost push inflation as well. That's another thing you can talk about. There's several things you can talk about, okay? Now, this is a very common question that does come out. Okay, just remember what will shift SRAS. That will be cost of production. And obviously, you're using the classical diagram here. You cannot use the Keynesian diagrams. The Keynesian does not have SRAS. And you can remember that in my initial lessons, initial videos, I should say, we talked about that. So when we're talking about SRS, one of the benefits of using the classical diagram is that they divide supply into SRAS and LRAS. So classical diagrams are very, very useful in that regards. So hopefully you will know exactly how to do it. Have a go at this question. Think about one economic impact analysis, do your chain of analysis and explain fully. Okay, so hopefully this has benefited you and you're going to feel a lot more confident in doing questions on SRS. And the good thing about it as well, you've also showed the state of the economy. So you can definitely talk about economic growth, definitely talk about the negative output gap, definitely talk about how economic growth has reduced, negative output gap has increased, therefore reducing economic growth. Or you go down the employment. Remember, you've got YFE. Anyway, like, share, and subscribe. Thank you very much. Hope you've enjoyed this, and I'll do a lot more. Thank you. Bye-bye.